You can smell it before you can see it. The kitchen full of steam, the pot so big it sits across 2 burners, the red broth going since morning, and somewhere in the house a voice calling out that the pozole is ready, and everybody coming. Christmas, a birthday, the last night of the year. It is the smell of the whole family folded into one room. And one day, you decided you would make it yourself, in your own kitchen, for your own people. And it came out thin, pale and orange and watery. The hominy sat there like it had come straight from a can, and the broth tasted like a chile that had given up halfway. It was warm. It was fine. It was not the pot you grew up on, and you could not say what was missing. So sit down with me, mija, and let me tell you what stands between that bowl and the one you remember. Because none of this is about talent, mija, and nobody anywhere is keeping a secret from you. It comes down to 2 things, and once you know them, you will never set a thin pozole in front of your people again. The first one, your broth came out weak because you cooked it like a soup that was in a hurry, and pozole is never in a hurry. That deep red body you are chasing only comes up out of hours on the stove, and there is no jar or bottle on this earth that can fake it for you. The second one, and this is the one that will change your pot for good, you have been buying the neat, boneless, tidy piece of pork because it looked like less trouble, and you have been leaving behind the very thing that makes the broth taste like your grandmother's, the bones. The bone and the skin and the knuckle. That is where the body of the caldo is born, and the butcher will hand them to you for almost nothing, because most people no longer know to ask. You have cooked with me before, so you know how this kitchen works. No jar of seasoning, no shortcut that skips the part that matters, just chiles and pork and a pot and a long, patient afternoon. Everything is written out for you down below, every measure, so you can stand at your own stove and move right along with me. But before your hand touches that pot, let me clear away the folklore, because pozole carries more of it than almost any dish I know, and the folklore is exactly what has been keeping yours thin. The first thing they tell you, the red comes from tomato, or from a big spoon of paprika, or from that little jar on the shelf. Mija, no. The red of a true pozole rojo is chiles, dried ones, guajillo for the color and the body, and ancho for the deep, sweet darkness underneath. You toast them, you soak them, you blend them, and you push them through a strainer, and that smooth red is what turns your broth that deep brick color that almost seems to glow in the bowl. A tomato cannot do that. A jar cannot do that. If your pozole ever came out thin and orange, it was simply never given enough chile. The second thing, they tell you canned hominy is the only kind worth bothering with, that the dried is too much work and never softens anyway. Half of that is just fear. Yes, canned hominy will do, and on a busy week I am not going to shame you for reaching for it. But the dried nixtamal, that big corn they sell as maíz para pozole, is a different food altogether. Cooked slowly, every kernel opens up like a little flower, chewy and full of real corn taste, and it drinks the broth in instead of just floating in it. If your hominy has always tasted like nothing much, now you know why. Canned hominy fills the bowl just fine, but the dried nixtamal is the corn those old pots were built on, and once you cook it, you will taste everything the can was missing. The third thing, and this is the one that quietly ruins the most pots, they treat the toppings like a garnish, a little something you scatter on the side and could just as easily skip. Mija, the toppings are half the dish. A bowl of pozole with nothing on it is a bowl that is not finished yet, and I will show you why in just a minute. And one more, they get twisted around. Somebody will always tell you there is only one true pozole and everybody else is doing it wrong. There is a red one, a white one, and a green one, and they all came up out of the same ancient pot. This is an old dish, older than the country whose name it carries, from back when the corn itself was something sacred. So when your family swears by the red and your neighbor swears by the green, nobody at that table is wrong. You are both cooking something that has been feeding this land for a very long time. Now let me tell you what is truly happening inside that pot over those long hours, so you understand why the time is not something you get to skip. 2 slow things are going on at once. The pork is giving itself up to the water. The bones and the skin and the collagen in that cheap cut are melting down into the broth, little by little, and that is what gives a real caldo its body. That faint silk it leaves on your lips, the thing a thin and hurried broth can never have. And the corn is blooming. That treated kernel is slowly opening and softening, letting its starch loose into the broth and taking the broth back into itself. Rush either one of them and you get exactly the pozole you have been getting all along. Hard corn, thin water, and pork that is cooked through but has given nothing to the pot. Those hours are the recipe. There is no way around them, and there was never meant to be. Now, the way it truly goes, and it comes in two halves, the pot and the table. And the table is not an afterthought. Start the pork early. You want pork shoulder for the meat, cut into big pieces, and then ask your butcher for some bones, a piece of neck bone, a trotter if your family likes it that way, whatever he has back there. Put the meat and the bones into your biggest pot, cover them with cold water, and add half an onion, a whole head of garlic cut straight across the middle, and a couple of bay leaves. Bring it up slowly, and here is the honest step that nobody films. As it climbs toward a simmer, a gray foam will rise to the top. Skim it off, spoon it away, and let it go, because that foam is what turns a broth cloudy and heavy, and skimming it is the whole difference between a murky pot and one that runs clean and clear underneath the red. Then drop it to a low simmer and let the pork go soft, an hour and a half, maybe 2, skimming again whenever you need to. While the pork goes, you make the red. Take your guajillo and your ancho chiles, pull the stems off, shake out most of the seeds, and toast them on a dry comal just until they smell warm and a little nutty. And mija, watch them the whole time, because a chile burns in a heartbeat, and one burnt chile will turn the entire pot bitter with no way back. Soak them in hot water until they go soft. Then blend them with a few cloves of garlic, a piece of onion, a little cumin, and enough of their soaking water to move until the whole thing is completely smooth. Now push it through a strainer into a bowl, and do not skip that, because the skins and the tough bits that stay behind are exactly what would have left your broth gritty. What comes through is smooth and pure and deep red. When the pork is tender, pour that red through into the pot. This is the moment it stops being a pale broth and turns into pozole. Let it settle in and simmer gently so the chile cooks down into the pork instead of just sitting on top of it, another half hour at the very least. Now the hominy goes in. If it is canned, drain it and rinse it well, and in it goes, because it only needs to warm through and take on the broth. If it is the dried nixtamal, it wanted its own long cooking earlier, until it bloomed open, and now it joins the pot to finish with everything else. Then taste your broth. Now, and only now, is when you reach for the salt, a little at a time, tasting as you go, because the broth cooked down and drew itself in, and salting it too early would have left you guessing in the dark. It should taste deep and warm and a little bit like an occasion. If your whole house smells like toasted chile and slow pork right now, mija, and the windows have started to fog, then you are doing every bit of this exactly right, and I would love it if you stayed a while. Come and cook the old way with me, the slow way, one good pot a week. Now let me show you the part that most videos leave out completely, the part that is the true heart of this whole thing, because here is what the pot alone will never tell you. The pot is only half of it. The other half happens at the table, and it is the reason this soup means what it means to everyone who grew up on it. You do not serve pozole finished. You bring the bare bowl, just the red broth and the pork and the corn, and then you set everything else out in the middle of the table and let each person finish their own. A big pile of shredded cabbage or lettuce, a little dish of radishes sliced thin, chopped white onion, a bowl of dried oregano to crush between your fingers, cut limes, a stack of tostadas, and maybe a dish of dried chile for the ones who are brave. And then everyone reaches in and builds the bowl they have been building their whole life. Your uncle buries his under oregano. The smallest child takes only broth and corn and refuses every green thing on the table. One person squeezes in 4 limes and the next squeezes none. It is not a soup you are handed. It is a soup you build at the table with your own hands, exactly the way you have always liked it. And none of that is chaos, mija. That is the dish doing the one thing it was made to do, feeding a whole room full of people who each wanted a little differently, and sending nobody away unhappy. Now let me help you read your first pot, because it will teach you something and I want you to know what it is saying. If your broth came out thin and weak, you did not have enough bone in the water, or you did not give it enough time. So ask for the bones next time and do not rush it. If it came out orange instead of a deep red, you were shy with the guajillo, or you never strained and simmered the chile in properly. So more chile, strained, cooked all the way in. If the whole pot tastes bitter, you burn the chiles when you toasted them, and next time you pull them off the second they smell warm. If your hominy stayed hard and rubbery, your dried corn was old, and old dried corn simply will not soften no matter how long you stand over it, so buy it somewhere busy where it moves off the shelf. If the broth feels greasy on your lips, you did not skim enough, so lift the fat off the top before you serve. And if the bowl just tastes flat, before you reach for more salt, ask yourself one thing: did you dress it? 9 times out of 10, A flat bowl of pozole is only a naked one. Now let me talk about money for a moment, because it matters more here than you would think. A bowl of pozole at a restaurant will run you $12, $14, and it is good, and I am not telling you to stop going. But that same money, one cheap cut of pork, a bag of hominy, a small handful of dried chiles, will not buy you a single bowl. It will buy you a pot that feeds 15 people with more left in the bottom. This was never an expensive dish. It was a dish built for feeding everyone who came through the door, which is the whole reason it lived at Christmas and at birthdays and on the night the country throws itself a party. And somewhere along the line it began slipping out of the kitchen, not because anyone stopped loving it, but because it asks for the better part of a day, and there is no way to sell a woman the better part of a day. So they sold her the can and the jar of seasoning instead, and whispered that the pot was too much trouble. But that pot was never really the trouble, mija. A day at that stove was how the whole family ended up in one warm room, and that gathering was the thing they quietly took from you. And here is one more thing worth carrying with you. Pozole does not mind the freezer at all. Make the giant pot, the way it was always meant to be made, and freeze whatever is left in portions. Just the broth and the pork and the corn, never the toppings. The toppings stay fresh, always at the table. And the quiet gift of this soup is that it comes back even better than it went in, once the chile and the pork have had a few more days to learn each other. So a pot of pozole tucked away in your freezer means you can set a whole table on short notice, a gathering you can call up out of the cold, on the very night the people you love turn up at your door. So here is what I would love from you. Make the pot this season, while the weather is cold and the caldo months are here. Ask the butcher for the bones. Toast your own chiles and watch them close. Set the whole table out and let your people build their own bowls, arguments and all. Then come back and tell me in the comments how it went. And be honest about how many thin, pale pozoles you made before somebody finally told you about the bones. And tell me the things your family actually fights over, the ones every Mexican kitchen argues about. Cabbage or lettuce, radish or no radish, red, white or green. Tell me your state, and tell me whose hands made the pot you still remember, because somebody taught you this without ever writing down a word of it, and this is a good place to say their name out loud. Next time, we make the green one, the pozole verde, with tomatillo and toasted pumpkin seed, for the ones in your family who will go to their grave swearing the red was never the real one. Bring your appetite, and bring your argument. I will see you at the table, mija.